everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on the penultimate episode of Trigun Stampede! So yeah, Roberto's likely dead. Roberto is likely dead. Meryl has decided to take matters into her own hands. She's got her own Derringer now. Wolfwood is, has his contract used up. He's technically a free man. Now, does that mean he's a free man to go rescue Vash? I don't know. Or is he going to go after Livio and Blue Summers? I don't know. But Vash needs some help right now because he made his way to Knives, and Knives has trapped him in this vat of we don't know what, and thinks he's going to just rebuild Vash from the ground up in his image. I'm like, awesome, cool, great. And we're on the penultimate episode of the season, so no big deal. I've really come to like Trigun Stampede a lot. I told my brother about it. I was like, have you watched Trigun Stampede? He's like, oh, I watched the first couple episodes. And I was like, no. I was like, you got to keep going. I was like, you got to make it past those first couple episodes because then it becomes its own thing and it's really, really good. So I'm really, really excited about these last two episodes. And I'm honestly kind of sad. I'm really sad that Trigun Stampede's going to be over for a while until season 2 comes out. So that's really sad. I'm like, sad days. But I'm really excited. I got a couple comments before we start. One of these comments is actually going to have to be saved until after the episode because it's a little spoilery. But K.A. was talking about Brad's voice actor, which is Junichi Suwabe. Yes. But the voice actress playing Luida is the same as Rukia Kuchiki from Bleach, which is great. But here's what gets me. Suwabe voices Almine, a character in Kuroko's Basketball, and I've always shipped Almine with Momoe, another character from Kuroko's Basketball. And as fate would have it, Suwabe is not only voicing Brad, but his wife, Luida, who is played by the same voice actress as Momoe from Kuroko's Basketball. So I was like, what? Did we get these couples together? Oh my gosh, I love that some of these voice actors, they get, like, not that they get typecast, but they get typecast with other voice actors. It's like, oh, you're playing this role, then we have to have them play the other role. And it's like, I feel like the voice actor for Octagawa and Atsushi and Bungo Stray Dogs, they've been like a pair in several anime together. You just can't get away from them, right? But not only that, Hazy Days 9921 was talking about there's a reactor called Brinjamin. I don't really have time to watch other reactors, if I'm being honest. My channel and my work life and stuff takes up too much of my time. But, so I don't watch a lot of reactors. I only watch like 1 or 2 regularly, and even then it's not very regular. But there's this reactor called Brinjamin who plays piano with their siblings and has in the past, and they actually have been reacting to Trigun Stampede and talked about how the scene with Vash and Knives is sitting there playing the piano in the last episode, and Vash kind of comes in and takes the piano over, and it's like, and it's like, okay, and they kind of like take the lead away from Knives, which Knives wants to take the lead, and Vash is taking it from him, hint, hint, blah, blah. But also the piece that Knives is playing throughout the rest of the series is meant for 2 people. It's hard to play it by yourself. And it's like, yeah, Knives just wants his brother in his life, but Knives kind of selfishly wants Vash all for himself and wants to be in control and in charge. And Vash is a free spirit and he wants to be everybody's friend. So it's like, who's going to cave? Who's going to give? Is Knives going to have to cave into Vash, or is Vash going to have to become what Knives wants him to be? We'll have to just see which way it's going to be. So I really appreciated both those comments. Like I said, I've got another comment, but it's going to have to wait till after the discussion when we get to the spoiler corner. But y'all, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Ever since like episode 7, I was like, I don't know where we're going with this series. I kind of have an idea, but not anymore. So I'm excited to see where all it heads. So I hope y'all are excited for this penultimate episode because I definitely am as well. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right in and see what we get. I hope y'all enjoy, but we're going to watch Trigun Stampede episode 11, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So that was an episode. Oh my god! What? my God. I was on the edge of my seat and felt so queasy and uneasy and terrified this whole episode. I'm like, why? Why can't we have nice things, show? What the actual fudge, man? Oh my God. I'm just like, Vash, no. Oh, I feel for Vash. I really do. I feel for him so hard because all Vash is trying to do is try to love everybody. And that's the problem. Everybody keeps telling him it's not possible. And it's like, well, you're making it not possible, you know? Vash is just trying to be a nice person and be as loving as the love that was given to him. And everybody else is just trying to muck it up. And Knives is such an interesting character. We're going to talk about him. He's such a fascinating character. And episodes 8 and 9, I really felt for him as a character. In episode 10, I was like, okay, here he kind of starts to get back to his, oh yeah, by the way, I'm the villain roots here. It's like we give him some depth. We give him some layers, but it's like at the end of the day, he's the antagonist and he is a villainous character. And I don't know. We'll talk about this whole thing. What an episode. What a creepy Neon Genesis End of Evangelion. As this definitely had lots of influence from End of Evangelion, right? Like the giant female like plant coming up from the ground made out of all of Vash's roots, which is a thing. That kind of looks like Rim, which is a thing. Like she kind of looked like Rim, like the tendrils of the vines were starting to look like Rim's hair at the end when it started to rise up. I'm like, which in Evangelion, not to spoil End of Evangelion, but I feel like if you've not seen Neon Genesis, then this will probably make no sense to you. But the female figure that is prominent takes after the character Rei, and Rim kind of, and what Rei represents as kind of this like weird sisterly, motherly female presence for Shinji, the main character in Neon Genesis. Rim kind of represents that for Vash, right? There's kind of like a weird, there's a Rim kind of has this motherly, sisterly, almost like romantic-esque quality around Vash, and that's kind of what Rei has for Shinji in that series. Least romantic, mostly sisterly, motherly, but like this maternal quality, and that's kind of in End of Evangelion, the form kind of takes the same form as Rei, and in here, the plant that Vash creates kind of takes the form of Rim. So fascinating how that goes, right? There's only one aspect about all this that really deeply concerns me that I was like, why did we have to do that? And we'll talk about it when we get to it. You probably already know what it is. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. I symbolically understand why we did it, but it's still, gross. So yeah, Meryl showing up with Wolfwood. I will give this show props. It did not do the stereotypical thing that I thought it was going to do. I thought it was going to have somehow Meryl interfere, and I thought Wolfwood was going to show up and interfere. I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought Wolfwood was going to like get his conscience and go and save Vash. I thought that was going to happen this episode. Now, it may still happen next episode that Wolfwood dives into the water and saves him somehow. Don't know how that's going to work. But I really thought it was going to happen this episode, and I give the show props for not doing what I expected it to do. I thought it would get to like 99.25, and then Wolfwood would jump in and stop the synchronization. But no, it happens. It happens. And you're just like, oh, so the bad guys are going to win. Awesome, cool, I guess. But then, bad guys is a very subjective term in all this, because we've kind of established throughout this that humanity has done some pretty shitty things, especially to the plants. So Knives feels very justified in what he's doing. But yeah, I really thought, I give Meryl props for not bringing up Roberto being dead. I'm glad she doesn't just throw that to Wolfwood as an excuse to come help her. I'm glad she doesn't do that. I'm glad she's just like, hey, where's Vash? Why aren't we helping him? And Wolfwood's like, it's not my problem anymore. I did my job. Now I'm going to leave. So I don't know with Wolfwood. A part of me in my gut is like, I think Wolfwood would come through and try to save Vash in this. A part of me thinks that, but then another part of me thinks, no, maybe not. Maybe Wolfwood is going to go off to find Livio and Blue Summers, because Blue Summers has like vanished from the series. Blue Summers and Livio has vanished, so I'm assuming that Wolfwood's going to go after them, and maybe that's going to lead us into season 2. But how is Vash going to get out of this? I don't know. I'm so curious. But I give Meryl props for not bringing up Roberto and trying to use him as a reason to get Wolfwood to stick around. She doesn't do that. She's taken her own matters into her own hands, and she just, you know, asks where he is, and she's like, fine, if you're not going to help me, then I'll just go and do it myself, and we'll just go from there. I do like she kicks him in the shins and says she's disappointed in him for giving up on him, and that's when Wolfwood runs out of the cigarettes. Also, their skulls. It tastes like hell is what it says on the cigarette packet. That's hilarious. That's actually really, really funny that it tastes like hell. I guess I feel bad for Vash because this entire episode is just like, it is straight up body horror. Absolutely body horror. The idea of Knives, like, there's this weird kind of almost incestual nature of it because it's Knives literally penetrating Vash with his knives. So with his blade, so to speak. There's a lot of sexuality stuff going on, which they're plants. They're not human. So their version of incest is probably different than ours, but there is like a little incestual quality of Knives like having to penetrate Vash to sync them together. Also, I mean, Knives does have the anatomy of a Ken doll, so do that with what you will. Although Knives freaking buff as hell, like, dude did not skip ab day or pec day with his Dorito shaped body. I'm like telling myself the whole time Knives on screen, I'm like, you're not attracted to him, stop. But I do feel bad for Vash. One, because there is this body horror element where he's like literally penetrated by Knives, and then it forces him to release this essence that he has. And Knives reveals to us, the audience, that Vash, who doesn't have a power, mind you, his power, as it turns out, he does have, and it's his ability to connect between one plane of existence to the other. He's the conduit, he's the middle ground between the two that connects them together. Knives doesn't have that ability, it's only Vash's. So that's why Vash could heal the plant earlier. He could draw in the energy from the higher plane through his gate, so to speak, and bring it in to save the plant. And that's why Knives is like, oh, well, if you could do that and save the plant, then you'll just make you a perpetual gate, and you'll just become this permanent fixture here in July, and you'll just open up this gate for eternity and let all the plants come out and have their souls come into their bodies that the humans have cloned, and then we'll just have our own little plant world. And I'm like, I understand that that's accomplishing Knives' goal of getting the plants to transfer over here fully to the human world from their plane of existence. But I'm also like, this is your brother, and you're literally making your brother a conduit. You're transforming your brother into like an inanimate object that will just have no idea what's going on. And one of my least favorite trope in any storytelling, my least favorite trope, I hate it, is the idea of memory manipulation and taking away people's memories, because that's like, I guess it attaches itself to a fear of like the idea of dementia and Alzheimer's, and losing your own memory and your sense of self is terrifying. And so the idea that Knives is perfectly fine. He's like, oh, well, Vash, if you just forget about all these people that have caused you pain over the years, then you can just live in this little vegetable state and be like just this radish here, be a vegetable that has no memories, just live in this ignorant bliss while I use you to open up a gate to our dimension and let our people come in and wipe out humanity. We'll totally be fine, right? That's great. And I understand that it's accomplishing Knives' goal, but it does definitely show how flawed Knives is, because you can empathize with Knives for being angry at humanity, and you can empathize with him for being angry and not happy with what they've done. But I'm like, there's such a hypocrisy there, because I'm like, Knives, what you are doing and the manipulation that you've done and the hatred you have and everything, you are so much more human than you think you are. Like, it's like all of this stuff that Knives is doing is such a human thing to do. It's a human mentality to have. Vash is the one that's not human, which is the irony of it all. Vash is the one that's not like humanity at all. He's the one that forgives. He's the one that's so kind. He's the one that keeps loving and keep trying after all that's been bad that's happened to him. He keeps going forward and doing what other humans wouldn't dare to do. Vash is the one that's not human. He just looks the most human, but he isn't. It's like Knives is actually more human than Vash in his actions and his motivations. And it's terrifying, right? It's absolutely terrifying. And I feel so bad for Vash because he doesn't have any control over his body. He doesn't have any control over what he's doing. There's this weird sexual act of the vines coming from him penetrating the plants, which is disturbing in itself. I'm like, Vash did not consent to penetrating the plants. Like, that's just, it's so gross. It's so gross. And then I'm assuming the doctor is probably going to die by the end of this because he looked like, it's interesting to know that Knives was just keeping him alive literally to finish this project. It's interesting to know that that's the case. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't feel good for the plants in this scenario either, because like the plants that are surrounding Vash and Knives, they're just sitting here like, they look like they're in pain. They don't look like they're enjoying any of this either. So I'm kind of like, I don't even want them to be there either by the end of this. It's like, you just feel so bad for them. And then Knives just keeps trying. What sucks so much is like the manipulation that Knives does on Vash here. Like, he basically says that everything is Vash's fault. And that Vash he's like, well, if you could just forget about everything and be this living vegetable to let me carry out my plans, then, you know, fine. I feel like Knives has gotten so caught up in trying to get rid of humanity that in his mind, saving his brother while also using his brother to accomplish his goals, it's become so twisted and warped. And you can empathize with Knives on a certain level, but then there's another level where you're like, can you like not torture your brother anymore, please? Like, Vash would not do that to you. And it sucks. He said it's our fault. And he's like, then be crucified on behalf of the sinners as you wish. And I feel bad for Meryl because she can't really do anything. She's like, as he's being assimilated and the gate is awakened, he's like, I'm just going to make you into nothing. And I'm like, but how is that keeping your brother by your side, you weirdo? And then, yeah, Wolfwood takes the cigarettes from Roberto and he says, I've got to make a choice. So I'm wondering if Wolfwood will end up going to save him or if he'll walk away. That's going to be interesting. And then, of course, we see Tanis and we see Rollo and how Vash couldn't save them. And then Knives takes Wolfwood's place and says, you just need to kill him. I do like the effect of the memories as they fade away becoming geraniums. I think that's a really, really good effect. I like the idea that as his memories leave, it's still attached to Rim. We'll talk about Rim. But I hate how Knives says he's just a hero who can't save anyone and a coward who can't stand to watch anyone die. I want Vash to stand up for himself because throughout most of this, he does get a chance to talk back to Knives a little bit, but he doesn't get a lot of his own agency or voice. And I know they're building up for him to like give the big speech possibly in the next episode and tell Knives how he really feels. I'm hoping that happens because I want Vash to stand up for himself and to explain to Knives why he does what he does. And I hate that Vash has to suffer in this episode. It's really sad. I do like now how the OP ties directly to this episode. This episode is literally tied to the OP and him running through all of these memories and all fading away like the sand and tying the sand to the desert and like it's slipping through your fingers and to dreams. It's the symbolism and the representation it has throughout is really, really well done. I like that an awful, awful lot. It's really, really good. But yeah, I hate it that Knives is like, I'm not going to let you run away from all of this. And he's like, he just wants Vash to relax so that he can, like, what does it show like his feet? It shows his feet are like his legs, like all the vines and stuff are coming out of his legs. It's so creepy. And the purple flowers and everything. The thing that gets me is Rim. When we see Rim and the geraniums. And that Knives loves her. The love for humanity versus the love for a younger brother. So is Knives the younger brother then? And Vash is the older one? Interesting. So I like we get this random, the only levity in this episode was the random guard that was slurping the noodles. That was so random and weird, but it was like the one funny moment. Even when they're attacking the plant, it's like he still has the noodles, which is hilarious. And there's a part of you that's like humanity attacking the plant, which of course, humanity attacking something before they understand it. I imagine that. Imagine that. And you don't blame him. You're kind of like, oh shit, this thing keeps growing and it could possibly hurt us. But then you're like, damn it, it's Vash. And they're hurting Vash. And it's like, it sucks, right? Also, it's very interesting that there's this, like, again, connecting Rim to the plant being that's coming from Vash. There's this, like, feminine energy behind it. And the fact that it's coming from Vash is really interesting. You do with that what you will, you fanfic readers, but I find that interesting. And Meryl's just trying to help him, like, stay together with it. And the doctor's like, it's far too late. And so I like the idea that Rim was trying to keep them both safe. And she's like, don't tell them that you have powers. She didn't want them to be used. The whole thing with Tesla, that whole thing is just, that blew my mind. Because last episode, I thought, oh, the doctors with that's Knives as a kid before their hair was cut. But it looked kind of different. No, the eye color should have gave it away because the eye color on the other plant was like blue. So that is interesting that whenever the plants take on this like human form, they all kind of look the same. Like Alindra looks kind of like the two of them. She looks like them, and Tesla kind of looks like them. They all look like blonde hair with the blue eyes and everything. That's fascinating to me that they all look kind of similar, which the plants all look kind of similar when they're in their like natural form. So, But I like that Rim, she tells Vash, she's like, look, just because you don't have any powers, you don't have to compare yourself to anyone. You're yourself, and that's fine. It's okay to be yourself. And, she wants to keep Knives protected, so she tells him not, powers, no powers, you boys are still both precious to me. And then he pauses it and shows Vash the memory of when they go in to test things. And I like that Knives was trying to find the password and Vash just gives it to him, which again makes it kind of his fault too. So it's like, I hate it, right? And then we see the project type. We see Nye, which is NY. We see Nye, which is 4 foot 1, 55 pounds, July 21st, 2045. So are they Leos? Are they both Leos? And their birthplace is the 5th mothership. And then we see Vash, who's the same. And then we see category. So May 3rd, so 50 years prior, May 3rd, oh man, a Taurus. It was Tesla, which was with the doctor. And they're like type T, another independent born on the ship. And that's when they both see what became of Tesla. And it's just like all of her parts and everything, just like she exploded, like she was used until she couldn't be used anymore. And the question is, then there's this body horror question of, was Tesla used to create Knives and Vash? We don't know. Was she experimented on? They picked her apart. So the interesting thing is it seems that Vash blocked out this memory. Vash didn't want to remember this. And Rim was like, I don't want this to happen again. And Vash had faith in her that she'd be able to keep it from happening. But Knives did not have faith. And he was like, oh no, we're going to end up in the test tubes just like Tesla, and we're going to get ripped apart. And he didn't want that for himself or for Vash. It's just very frustrating because even if Knives is trying to keep Vash safe from humanity, having him become this vegetable that's impregnating these plants, letting their souls suck in from another dimension, doesn't seem like a much better existence, So it's like Knives, your plan is maybe filled with a few holes. Just a few, right? And Vash is like, I understand why you would hate them. And Knives is like, you still don't get it. That was one grain of sand. And then we cut back to Knives under the tree, reading the Holy Bible. But I'm like, did you read the New Testament or the Old Testament? Because I'll be honest, I'm reading the Old Testament right now. Yes, there's a lot of war and death in that book. So, and a lot of repetition. So I could see he must have gotten to Chronicles and then was like, I can't read anymore. I'm like, I could understand if you only read the Old Testament, but I was like, but there was this New Testament that's about more faith and peace and stuff. Did you get to that part, Knives? I don't think you did. I don't think you kept reading long enough. If you read more, you would have been fine. I also like that the history that he looks at is the Bible. And Vash is like, when we're born, she vowed to never let it happen again. We have to have faith in humanity. And Knives just can't have faith. He doesn't have faith in humanity. He doesn't believe in it. And he tells Vash that without any powers, you're too weak to live as a plant. And that's why you crave the love of humans over all else. But the thing of it is, Vash does have a power. And he can connect the gates and everything. So I feel like Vash does have a power. And if that's not the power that Knives considers to be enough to make him more of a plant, then I want Vash to open up a power and have it by the end of the next episode. And then be like, no, Knives, I have a power. I'm just loving humans because I have faith in them. And like he has faith in Knives, I would assume he still does have faith in his brother. But Knives just does all this gaslighting on him to like make him manipulated. And he's like, you'll never find happiness and I have to, like that whole thing, like I had to protect you. I did it all for you. Is so manipulative. And I'm like, damn it, no. And making like poor Vash's world crumble apart. I hate it. And then that's when he just basically like carves up Rim in front of him. He says, what you tried to believe was love, but it was excuses and fantasies. And him like chopping off Rim's head. I was like, I just finished Attack on Titan. I didn't need to see this again. And the idea that Knives to save him is to shatter his love for Rim and to sever him from it is so sad. And the thing about it is that it's not really even to save Knives. It's just to use him to open up this gate for Knives' own purpose. And what a shitty thing on Vash's birthday. I hate that. No. Ugh. I do think all the flowers blooming on the plant is really pretty. I do love that. Like, that's really pretty. But then, like, the thing that's so freaking gross is, like, it opens up and there's all of the plants and they've, like, been impregnated by the limbs from Vash. Like, they weren't pregnant before. What the fudge? Why? And that's when Knives, like, takes his knives out of Vash and says, I'm going to enter the higher plane and directly touch the core. Like, what is that going to do? Ugh. Like, I guess in that sense, he's going to touch the core and then enable the plants to, like, become... So they don't have souls. So these plants that are just, like, literal husks there don't have souls yet. And he's going to try to connect to the higher plane, I guess, to transfer the souls of them over, or is he going to try to take control of the higher plane? I don't like the idea that Vash, like, I understand, like, symbolically, you're talking about, like, plants blooming and being pollinated, so that's, like, the male part and the female part, and, like, the plants being pregnated. It's just, it's, like, a gross body horror, and as a woman, that freaks me the fuck out. I'm like, no. I was like, why couldn't they have it attached to their foreheads or something, or into their hearts or something? Why did they suddenly have to be impregnated? Are they gonna have babies? What is happening? It's gross. It's gross and unnecessary. I was like, ew, can't we have one sci-fi series that doesn't involve a woman's body being violated? Can I get an amen? Can we have one sci-fi series without female violation? I'm begging you. Please. And then Knives getting his wish. And he says, a human race and its zealous assertion of dominance ends here. Which I'm like, you're doing the exact same thing they're doing with the plants. And then he goes in there to the core. And there's just this weird... It's just this ethereal space. So I'm like, what's going to happen when he gets to the core? What are we going to do? And I like that the worms are kind of looking out and seeing all this, being like, huh, is this what we want? Is this what we want? And then, yeah, this, like, blossom plant. Oh. So what are we going to do now? Ugh. I'm so curious. Since we have a season 2, that makes me very curious what we're going to do with this series. I don't know. I'm very curious, you see? So we'll just have to see, I guess. But I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I've got some spoilers I want to talk about, but not very many. but we'll talk about that. So yeah. So if you're not sticking around for the spoiler corner, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Hope y'all enjoyed this. I'll see y'all next week, I guess. But if not, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and if you're not sticking around for the spoiler corner, I'll see you next week for Trigun Stampede, episode 12's season finale. Well, this has taken a very drastic turn from the original. I don't know. I guess the original had a lot of body horror as well. And there is a similarity because Vash does not have control of his body. There's body horror in both series where Vash's body becomes a literal weapon. It's very interesting the different take that this series does, because in the OG, Knives is able to manipulate Vash's body without his permission and make it into a weapon that can attack others. And it has like this very masculine energy to it. Here, what's very interesting is that it takes on like a more feminine energy, which is interesting. And instead of being a weapon, it's like a force of creation in this weird, horrific way. So I like that idea of translating it differently, the idea of Knives controlling Vash. And with Knives in the OG series, there was no physical touch involved with controlling, it just happened. And here, there is literally him penetrating Vash to make it work. So that's interesting. Again, I think the OG didn't have female violation like it does in this series because it wasn't a sci-fi. It was more like a Western shonen thing. I don't know. There's something about, I've watched a lot of sci-fi, and in a lot of sci-fi, there's somehow always like female impregnation is like a trope and like about creation and body horror and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's kind of disturbing. I was like, why are we impregnating the plants? Vash did not agree to this. He did not want to be the father of whatever happens with these plants. And if nothing happens, and the thing about it is, if nothing happens with the plants, why the hell do it other than to be like a metaphor? It's just, as a woman, it's gross. I don't like it. But I don't know what's going to happen at this point, because at this point in the series from the original, it's taken such a drastic turn. At this point in the original, I kind of, in the OG series, as much as I like Vash winning, quote unquote, in the OG series, it does come across as a little like rushed at the end. And I'm sure the manga is very different, but it does come across a little rushed in the end, as Vash just basically says, nope, you're coming with me, Knives, I'm going to reform you. And it's funny, he's like, I'm going to reform you. And we don't ever find out how that happens. And here, Knives is like, I'm going to reform you. And it's by altering your memory and making you a vegetable. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I approve of that. What do we do with that? So that's very interesting. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do next episode. I really don't. A part of me is like, I would want Wolfwood to get involved, but I don't want Wolfwood to die like he does in the OG series, because I want Wolfwood to be around for season 2, right? We would think so. Or maybe if Wolfwood gets attacked in the next episode, that Vash will be able to heal him. I don't know. I want to see, in the OG series, there was like an angel motif where the two of them at the end, there was all these angel wings that came out. So I would be curious to know if Vash, like, if his power that he's activating like lets him become an angel, and he like goes all Sailor Moon and saves everybody and does like a Sailor Moon transformation. I'd be all for that. And that would kind of match up, because in Sailor Moon, Meryl kind of had like the similar vines and everything that grew throughout Sailor Moon season 1 that kind of was something Sailor Moon had to overcome. I would be for that. Give Vash a Sailor Moon transformation. Make Wolfwood tuxedo mask. I'm here for it. Hell, make Meryl tuxedo mask if Wolfwood ain't gonna show up. But yeah, I did like the symbolism of Wolfwood taking the cigarettes from Roberto. It seemed like a very much passing the torch. Roberto's character is now passing the torch to Wolfwood, and Wolfwood's taking the cigarettes from him. And if he took the flask too, I don't think he took the flask as well. I don't know. But I don't know what Meryl's going to do in this situation. I feel like the doctor's going to die next episode, which would make sense. In the OG series, Chapel was killed by Wolfwood. So if the doctor's killed by Wolfwood in this one, it would kind of line up. I'm curious to know what Zazie thinks of all this. If Zazie's like, hey, what is this going on? What we doing? But I just mainly am just sad for Vash. I don't like the idea of our main characters being violated, and Vash is definitely violated in this episode, like psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually, just memory wise. It's just a bad deal. The one comment I was going to point out that I had to wait till spoiler corner was Wilson Roland C., who I kept being like, who is Louita from the OG series? There is no Louita in the OG series. I was thinking of the character called Jessica, and I was like, oh, there we go. Jessica was the character that lives and Brad dies in the OG series. That's what it is. So, yeah, I don't know. At this point, we haven't seen anything from Livio or Blue Summers. I feel like Legato and Livio are going to get away for season 2 and be there then. And I don't know. I don't know how humanity will react to this. One thing that I loved about Vash in the OG series was that at the end of the day, his whole thing was, yeah, I know that the road I'm taking for peace is hard and it's not popular and it doesn't seem fair nor feasible in any sense of the word, but I still choose to do it because it's the right thing to do. Even if I fail, even if I have to start all over again, I'm going to still keep trying to peace and love. Peace and love. Like that was Vash's big thing in the OG series. And I don't want this Vash to get away from that, because that's what makes Vash's character so special and so like kind and compassionate, is that he's all for peace and love, and that's what makes you love him so much as a character, because you're like, yeah, he's doing this very hard, seemingly impossible task, but he still tries, right? It makes him seem both human and beyond human at the same time. And I want him to still pursue that and not forget it. But if he's lost the memories of Meryl and Roberto and Wolfwood in them, it didn't show Wolfwood vanishing from his memory. It showed Meryl and Roberto vanishing in Rim, but I want Wolfwood to like slap some sense into him and be like, hey, Baka, hey, Oboke, like, come on, get back into it. Be your stupid self. I don't know. But I'm not going to be able to wait till the next episode. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to watch the season finale. I want to see it. So, I'm so curious, y'all. So curious. So, I'm not going to wait. We're going to find out, but I am curious to know your thoughts down below. What else can we say? I hope y'all had a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with the season finale of Trigun Stampede. Bye.